Hey everybody, I'm Trish. You're watching The Hunt. I am very excited to introduce my guest to you. Her name is Thompson. She is a speaker, a transformational coach, a former Fortune 50 executive. She's a former clinical psychotherapist. Welcome to the show, Janine. You with us?
I am indeed. Thank you. It's lovely.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great
I'm
to see you.
excited.
Yeah, you have such a great bright smile and a beautiful lipstick color as we move into fall.
Thank you. I like to keep it bright and happy. A little bit of resistance to what's ahead of us in Minneapolis, I think.
Oh, all right. I love it. And you are the author of 911 From Your Soul. I cannot wait to dive into this with you because that's such a great title. So let's start there. Let's introduce you to the audience. So you were a former clinical psychotherapist?
I was indeed treating the range of anxiety disorders
Yeah.
from an evidence-based perspective, OCD, panic disorder, and etc. for almost a decade.
Oh my goodness, that sounds fascinating. So obviously through that experience, you were able to collect a lot of information on how people handle those kinds of things. And you're not practicing anymore? Because it sounds like, that's an interesting career.
Yeah, it was an interesting career, and I think it's the utter intelligence of life,
Mm.
that foundation of deeply understanding human behavior and
Yeah.
all of the experiences that shape our personality and ego influences was the perfect foundation for moving into business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always thought I would love to be a psychologist, but then as time went on, it really, I changed my mind because I feel like if you're talking to folks and they're not willing to change, that would get really frustrating for someone like me. Did you experience that or what was that like for you?
You know, Gosh, I think that's true in all aspects of my career.
Yeah.
But one thing that I was really blessed with is I even then were working with leaders and executives, and they so desperately wanted to live a fuller, potential. And particularly with anxiety disorders, many of them
Yeah.
didn't want to get on a plane or do public speaking. So I was pretty blessed because they were a very motivated. They were just so motivated to live more fully who they believed they could be.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, so that was your practice. Was that your niche, if you will?
It will,
Executives,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it was called an evidence-based psychotherapist, which now I look back and I kind of giggle, I only went by the book, by science, what did the
Yeah.
clinical evidence say? And I, of course, had the range of mental health challenges as well in terms of depression and PTSD and et cetera. But anxiety disorders really was my sweet spot of expertise.
So speaking of just anxiety, I feel like we're living in a world right now where everybody's anxious,
Yeah.
or on medication or depressed or some sort of mental. I mean, how has it changed over the last 10 years, in your opinion? Um, Especially with the pandemic and things, but are you seeing it more prevalent, as we move over the course of the decade, or?
Absolutely. In fact, I had just read a stat the other day that 50% of individuals will experience a major depressive or anxiety episode in their life.
Really?
And I'm dating myself here a bit, but back when I was in graduate school, we used to say roughly 20%. So we're looking at, from 20% to 50% is a tremendous jump. And in theory, you'd think we have access to more in
Right.
our life. And yet now more than ever, people are struggling with depression and anxiety. And I do think some of it is related to the fact that we are starting to embrace embrace mental health challenges and allow people to be more honest about it without shaming them. So I think that's a factor. But I actually just think, and it ties in beautifully to my book, 911 from Your Soul, that I started to see in the last 5 years, even pre-pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
that the trappings of success, get the degree, get the next promotion, get the house, get the travel, get the accoutrements, all the things we've been spoon fed from birth that meant success. Increasingly, my clients kept saying, man, there just has to be something more. I don't want to sell my soul
Yeah.
to business, even though they love it. And time's clipping away. And there was this urgency that if they didn't crack the code on that something missing, uh, that they would have regrets that they missed out.
Yeah, and and thank God they've come to that conclusion, right? Like what, because you don't know how long you have in this physical
Mhm.
life, and when you find your why and your purpose, then life kind of changes, a little bit. And sometimes you can have both, right? You don't have to stop doing one thing entirely to move into the other, but to have that sense of awareness that
Mhm.
there might be more or something needs to change. Do you think social media or the internet or has contributed to some of these anxieties?
I
Do you?
do.
Yeah.
I think that it is a bifurcated experience.
Mm.
I think if you're incredibly selective and you choose individuals who bring provocative and uplifting and interesting perspectives, social media can be a brilliant vehicle to
Yeah.
foster personal and professional development or more joy in your life.
Sure.
At the same time, there's a lot of heightened division and cruelty at times that plays out on social media because people can hide behind the screen and there's a lot of comparison. So I think people think, my gosh, I should have more. Their life looks all shiny.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to walk through life as if mine is, but you know what? It isn't. Not all butterflies and unicorns. And so I think it can be a great blessing, but it also really can contribute to more anxiety and feeling like you're not enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I talk to a lot of people about this subject as well, just even, friends, and I have 3 kids myself. And so I've always said to them, look, your only competition is you. The
Mhm.
moment you start comparing yourself to everybody else is the day that you lose. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely do. In yoga, we're
Yeah.
taught to stay on your own mat, right?
Yes.
And in the beginning, and I would look over to my neighbor's mat, and they would do the asanas, the poses so elegantly, and I was awkward and inflexible, and I didn't know the Sanskrit words. And my teacher kept saying, Janine, stay on your own mat. Your body's built differently. Your reasons for being here are differently. Stay on your own mat. And I often tell my leaders and entrepreneurs that now let's tap into your inner zone of genius
Mm.
because that's the missing piece in the mosaic of your contribution.
I love that, and the way you just said that so elegantly. It is just and that's such a great lesson. What your yoga teacher said to you, and trust me, I feel you. I've been there as well. Um, but I mean, it's such a great lesson. But it translates to so many other pieces of life, right? I mean, the neighbors down the street, the
Mhm.
people, just in your community, let alone, people in business. So, do you find that these anxieties and the work that you've done run the gamut in terms of age and generation?
They do.
Yeah.
And I'm getting increasingly younger clients, and
Interesting.
for a while when I was starting to see the pattern of something missing, it was kind of the approaching the 40s and the 50s
Yeah.
and feeling a time urgency, that life was clipping by in the blink of an eye. But now I'm also starting to get a lot of 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds who say, you know what? I'm not going to set up my life this way. I am not selling my soul to my job. I want to make a meaningful difference, but I also care. I care about the earth. I care about joy and healthy relationships. And in many ecosystems of business today, um, they really don't look at the holistic employee experience. And we're also seeing that in the data. I just read the Gallup data.
Hey, Janine, will you do me a favor? This is so interesting, and we're going to come right back in a minute after a quick commercial break, and we're going to talk about your book in the next segment. But stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. I'm Trish. You're watching The Hunt. See you in a minute.